Hello, and welcome to Your Vote Counts, a public service program for the May 19th primary election, produced by Capital Community Media, a multimedia center that provides local content, education, and a platform for diverse community voices in the greater Salem area and the League of Women Voters of Marion, Polk counties. The League is a nonpartisan political organization advocating for voting rights, government transparency, and public election education. All candidates for the position of House of Representatives District 20 were invited to participate. Candidates were asked to prepare a 2-minute opening statement telling about themselves, their qualifications, and why they chose to run for office. I'm Alice Laviolette, your moderator from the League of Women Voters, and I would like to introduce candidate Andrew Fudge, who's running for House District 20, to share his opening remarks. Andrew?
Good evening, Alice. Thank you for that introduction. As you said, I'm Andrew Fudge. I'm running for the Republican nomination for House District 20. Now, with this race, it's important to note that I am not a career politician. I'm not a gifted public speaker, and I am constrained by being an employee of the state of Oregon, and so there's some special considerations that goes into that. With all of that, you might ask, why am I running for the nomination? Why am I even throwing my hat into the ring for this race? And the answer is, I'm frustrated, Alice. I'm frustrated with the Oregon legislature and how things are going in Oregon. I'm frustrated that there's an affordability crisis in the state, and under a supermajority, the Oregon legislature is pushing more taxes upon us, and they are making life in Oregon less affordable. They are pushing businesses out of the state of Oregon, and they are continuing on that path with a very heavy-handed top-down approach to governing, rather than being bipartisan and trying to solve problems. And so my campaign is all about practical solutions. It's about coming together, reaching across the aisle, and solving real problems that are important to the Oregonians in their everyday lives. It's not about these national issues and ideological differences. It's really about coming together and solving what matters for the people of Oregon. And so part of that that I'm hoping to address with my campaign is bringing accountability, opportunity, and results back to Salem. I'd like to address affordability in the states. I'd like to address improved education outcomes, and I would like to address homelessness with accountability. And so a vote for myself, Andrew Fudge, for House District 20 representative is a vote for accountability you can count on.
Thank you, candidate Fudge, for sharing that information with us. The questions for candidates were developed in collaboration with AAUW and League members. Candidates did not receive questions ahead of this interview. The candidates' responses to the individual questions will not be timed. Now, let's give candidate Fudge an opportunity to address questions of concern to our community. For our first question, tell us about your district and its primary needs.
Thank you, Alice. It's a great question to start off with. So my district is House District 20, and it runs along the Willamette River, so it includes parts of West Salem, South Salem, and Independence and Monmouth. So it's a very diverse section of the Oregon region, and so it's got more rural areas, it's got more urban areas, it's got a major college included in its boundaries with college students, and then it's got working families that are trying to get by. And so some of the priorities within the boundaries here especially are addressing homelessness. Wallace Marine Park is right at the top corner of the district, and it is home to a large array of homeless individuals that have been there for some time. And so there's been an opportunity over many years for the legislature to address this. They've passed bills including millions and millions in funding to address homelessness, and there just haven't been any results. The standing population of homeless is still there. The needs are unmet, and the underlying causes of that homelessness have yet to be addressed. And so I think one of the critical factors there is housing and affordability for that housing. There's a very serious shortage of supply of housing in this district, across all of Salem and Oregon as well, but in this district especially. I think yesterday or the day before, there was a city council meeting in Monmouth where they just passed a land swap deal and actually swapped out 90 acres or 75 acres of urban growth boundary lands within their boundaries with another plot of land outside of their boundary that's more palatable for them to build another 1,000 residences that are going to house over 3,000 people over the coming years. And so that's, an instance of one step that can be taken to address this crisis by increasing the housing supply. But very few of those kind of opportunities are coming up. Very few instances of that action are taking place. And so I think we need more of that. We need to have practical solutions, and we need to come together to address the homelessness situation.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Here's question number 2. Of the many legislative committees, which interest you the most and why?
Yeah, that's a great question, and one that I hope I can address thoroughly here as a state employee and a budget manager for the largest agency in the state of Oregon, which is the Department of Human Services. So part of my role over the several years that I've been with the state of Oregon and currently as a budget manager is to work on preparing the budget for the next 2-year cycle for the state agency that I'm at. And so that involves working very closely with other agencies in the state of Oregon, as well as the Legislative Fiscal Office, to prepare what that budget looks like for the next 2-year cycle. And that budget ultimately ends up in a bill, a funding bill, that's got to work its way through the Ways and Means Committee and its various subcommittees, depending on which agency it is and which special issue it is. And that's a long process. It doesn't usually happen until the end of session because all of the policy bills have to go through, and then dollars have to be attached to those bills, and the Ways and Means Committee has to weigh, what are their priorities. So budgeting is all about values. You prioritize and budget for what you value as a collective organization. And so through this Ways and Means process, we get the funding for the agency. So as a state employee with that experience, I think I'd be very interested in partaking in the Ways and Means Committee and contributing in any way I could to studying the broader state budgets for the state of Oregon, because that is a direct way to reflect the values of Oregonians and to prioritize funding in a manner that will help working Oregonians trying to find a way in an unaffordable Oregon.
Wow, thank you very much for that. Here's our third question. Recently, Parks and Recreation was assessed with the need for more safety inspections. Tell us about that situation and what you recommend.
Great question. I have not heard about this situation, but safety is obviously very important. It's been an issue for many years of trying to find the right balance of funding and supporting the right number of law enforcement officers and safety personnel. And it's usually very underfunded. We're always hearing about the need for more personnel to keep things safe. And so I don't know about this specific situation, but I support law enforcement and safety personnel and finding that right balance of keeping things safe, especially with Parks and Rec. That's just kind of putting it into perspective for the current area in House District 20. I mentioned Wallace Marine Park. We've got Riverfront Park. We've got Minto Brown Island Park, which is one of my favorites. I live nearby Minto Brown. It's a great running place. There's miles and miles and miles of trails that are great for runners and walkers and bikers to enjoy nature and get away from the city, even though it's right here within our city's boundaries. And to think that that place is unsafe for any reason is cause for concern, and we need to address that. And so if that involves more personnel patrolling through off hours, or just, again, addressing the underlying issue of homelessness around those areas, that's critical, and I support anything we can do to make it better.
Okay, thank you for that. Here's question number 4. Forests and fire protection are a continuing Oregon issue. What is in place for this season?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a concerning season ahead. By all reports, the snowpack is the lowest that we've seen in many, many years, and that's going to cause lower levels in the rivers and streams and reservoirs that are available to keep things green and less likely to burn. And then on top of that, we've got, I believe, an El Nino year coming up, so temperatures are on the rise. We just had an Easter weekend where the temperatures were 20 degrees warmer than average, so that's not a good start to the fire season. So I think everyone is expecting it to be more severe and to start earlier than it typically does. And so to address this, I think the state of Oregon typically works with the federal government, FEMA, to find ways to fight these wildfires as they come up. And so I think it's going to be critical to partner with our federal government contacts and to make sure that we have a plan in place, we have funding in place, and we're not trying to pay for the firefighting efforts months and months and months after they've already occurred, which I think has been a problem historically. I think we need to get ahead of this and start planning for it, and do everything we can to find more sources of water that are available to keep things green. I think there's some talk of a water treatment facility within House District 20, and there's some negative feedback potentially about that. But I think anything we can do to again, identify those additional sources of water are important. And one thing I neglected to mention was the drawdown. There's going to be a drawdown of the Detroit reservoir that feeds into Salem, which is going to further reduce our water supply. So yeah, it's a critical issue. We need water to fight fires. We need personnel to fight fires, and we need funding to pay those personnel. So I would prioritize that this year. It is going to be a significant fire season.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Here's question number 5. Should Oregon keep or repeal its sanctuary laws?
Yeah, that's a very tough question. And of course, with me running for the Republican nomination, I know it is a partisan issue, and my party tends to be on the side of trying to repeal those laws, right? But I think, again, this speaks to the national issues and not really the local issues that are important to Oregonians. And so for myself, I'm more interested in a bipartisan solution. These laws were passed many years ago with bipartisan support. And so even though the current situation is bringing them to the forefront and there are stark contrasts in opinion about these laws, I believe that we need to respect Oregon sanctuary laws as they were passed historically. And at the same time, we need to work with our local partners, particularly at the county level, who are in the middle between the federal authorities and the state authorities, both of which are saying, the opposite rules and regulations and laws apply, and they don't know what to do. There was a lawsuit that Marion County brought forward to try to get some clarity on this issue, and the courts kind of threw that out. I believe it's further being appealed, and so perhaps we'll get some clarity from the courts, but we don't have that clarity yet. So I think as a legislature, we need to legislate that clarity for local authorities to protect public safety in light of what the state laws are and what the federal laws are.
Okay, here's question number 6. Please discuss the implementation of the Break Free from Plastics Act.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Please discuss the implementation of the Break Free from Plastics Act.
Okay, and that is one that I don't know too much about, but being an Oregonian, lifelong Oregonian, I know that we've tried to pull away from having plastic bags so that you've got paper bags in grocery stores. You have to purchase them, and so it's really encouraging the use of reusable bags. So I don't know a whole lot about the implementation per se, but I would say as a native or lifelong Oregonian who loves the nature around me, the mountains, the ocean, the rivers and streams that we have, and all of the recreation that we can do in those things, it is important to protect them. And if eliminating plastics, where we can introduce something that's reusable, is a small step that we can do to protect that, I would definitely support implementation.
Okay, we have just a little bit left now. This is question 7. Do you believe Oregon schools are lagging behind in performance? And if so, what do you suggest for improvement?
I absolutely think that Oregon schools are lagging behind and that there is much room for improvement. So thank you for that question. It is one of the focal points of my campaign. My wife is an educator within the district of Salem-Keizer, part of which is in House District 20. And so it's a very important issue for me. I have a son that's in the district, and he's in public education. And so I want the best education that he can get for him. And right now, I don't think that's happening. And so I'd like to take strides to, as a legislator, to work with other legislators to try to fix the problem. And what I think the problems are, to identify the symptoms of the problems, what we're seeing is that there are low graduation rates. Recently, I think the most recent year of data shows an uptick in that graduation rate. However, the requirements for graduation were adjusted or manipulated to make it look like we had a success when I don't think we had any success. I think it's status quo. We definitely have lagging test scores in Oregon. We're consistently among the bottom 3, 4, 5 states in the nation for test scores in literacy and math. And those are core competencies that Oregon children need to have to be successful in society. And so I think anything we can do to increase those test scores, to increase graduation rates, to bump up attendance is going to be important. I think that starts with simplifying the curriculum. I think the education department has tried to push different types of curriculum that are maybe not as tested as they should be every few years. And they spend millions and millions of dollars trying to implement a new curriculum just to pivot to the next thing. And I think we need to focus on simplifying curriculum for Oregon schools and to get results out of a very simple curriculum.
Great. Thank you very much for that. I think this just about includes our interview questions. So now I'm going to invite you, Candidate Fudge, to share your closing 2-minute remarks, and please give us your public contact information.
Yeah, thank you, Alice, for having me tonight. This has been a pleasure. Again, not a polished politician. I'm not a career politician. Not a great public speaker. I'm going to get better as I go. The campaign is young. I am a local CPA trying to get through tax day. We're coming right up on that deadline, so just trying to get up and running here. And so this has been a great opportunity to address Oregonians, to get in front of them, and to really talk about the policies and the things that I care about. So facing an uphill battle if I make it to the general election against an incumbent who's been there for about 12 years and has name recognition, where I'm someone that doesn't have a lot of name recognition. I don't have a lot of resources at my disposal. Just getting my campaign off the ground, it will be an uphill battle, but I think it's a winnable race. I think with the affordability crisis that Oregonians are facing these days, and with some of the other issues in the state, including homelessness and poor education outcomes, I think by focusing on those issues at the local level, working across the aisle in a bipartisan manner, and really trying to be practical about finding solutions that help Oregonians will win votes. And so I'm hoping Oregonians will support my campaign to do those things. I think we need to be reasonable, we need to be practical, we need to hold government accountable, and have opportunity for Oregon families to be successful. And so I guess with that, I will switch over to my contact information. So I do have a campaign website, fudge4oregon.org. The 4 is the number 4, and that is .org, not .com. Like I said, my campaign is just developing, and so there's going to be more to come. But that is a good way to get in contact with me if you'd like to volunteer for the campaign, if you'd like to contribute, or if you just want some more information about the policy pillars that I'm proposing. But that is up and running, and I would be enthused to have Oregonians visit and to discuss these policies in more depth with me in any opportunity that they get. So thank you again for having me, Alice.
Well, thank you, Candidate Fudge, for your interview today and for sharing your thoughts. And thanks to Capital Community Media for their production and technology skills, to our community groups that provided questions and topics, and to you, the public, for watching this program in order to become a more informed voter. You have until April 28th to register to vote or to make changes to your registration. Watch for your ballots on April 29th. Remember to vote, and vote early before May 19th, especially if mailing your ballot. For more local, state, and national voter education information on candidates and ballot measures, visit vote411.org after April 15th when data is posted. Elections matter. Remember to vote, because your vote counts.